Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Saturday, June 8th. Hopefully everybody is having a good day so far. By the time many of you are listening to this, it'll probably be Sunday, June 9th, which will be another day closer to New York Jets mandatory minicamp starting on Tuesday, June 11th, and going through 3 days into Thursday, June 13th. So the offseason continues to roll on. We hit mandatory mini camp here this week. And then after that, you have that 40-day period between mini camp OTAs and then training camp starting in late July. So really, over the next couple weeks here after mini camp, you have some downtime, and then it's training camp, and then the season will really be very, very close with these summer activities, summer training, training camp, all that stuff happening in the summer, preseason, all that good stuff, getting in full swing here late in July. So a lot to be excited about if you're a football fan, if you're a New York Jets fan. This is episode 313 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. Been a little bit since an episode. But we'll have a lot to discuss today on the podcast. Basically, a news dump episode. Will break down everything that has happened over the last couple weeks, really over the last week, I should say, since our last episode. Hassan Reddick news. We'll get into the Jets, their young players taking a bigger role, as Roger said. We'll get into some other contract decisions the New York Jets will have to address here over the next couple weeks and even into the season and next offseason, and kind of how the future looks contract-wise, not only with Hassan Reddick, but also with the New York Jets 2022 draft class, which popped up in the news a little bit throughout the past week. And then we'll also break down my overall takeaways from OTAs, top performers, guys to continue to look out for as mandatory minicamp rolls around, and all that good stuff here on a Saturday program. Now, I'm excited to announce we have a new sponsor to the show here. Hygge House is now an official sponsor of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast, which can be found obviously on the Bubs on Sports YouTube channel here. If you want to support Hygge House, support me, support the channel, use my code, which I'll throw up here on the screen. Use code BUBS for 15% off any purchase at Hygge House. I will copy and post the link down below in the description of this video that you could take that link, and then anything that you click on to buy, the code will already be implemented there. And right at checkout, you can buy it. Whatever you buy, whether it's a hat or a t-shirt, whatever you get from there, use code BUBS, BUBBS, all capitals, as you can see on the screen, for 15% off any purchase at Hygge House. So definitely go check that out. Appreciate all the support. And if you want to look like Aaron Rodgers, who rocks the Hygge House gear, as you could see there in that photo or in this photo as well, you want to look like Aaron Rodgers, if you want to rock what QB1 is rocking, definitely head on over to Hygge House and use code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. Really fired up to partner with them here on the channel, and looking forward to continuing that partnership here and giving you guys all the top quality content I can as well here on the channel. So without further ado, let's break into break down the latest news surrounding the New York Jets. So we'll open up today with Hassan Reddick. Been under, kind of been in the news here over the last couple weeks, but really over the last week has been in the news more so than previously, because it was the final week of OTAs, and he officially closed out OTAs not showing up. So Hassan Reddick was not at any of the OTA practices. Saleh was asked about it on his press conference this past week. He said that, he's not overly concerned. He mentioned how he feels that he will be ready for mandatory minicamp. He expects him to be a mandatory minicamp, but you can tell by Robert Saleh's tone that there was a little bit of, not maybe frustration, but there was a little bit of, man, I wish he was here, man. You should be here in a way. But Saleh did mention he expects him a mandatory minicamp. It seems like it's contract related. Saleh also kind of went on to say, avoided to take really any other questions. Basically kind of said, I'm focused on the guys that are here and all that stuff. So the Hassan Reddick situation is kind of interesting. When he signed with the New York Jets, he made it pretty clear that he would look for a new contract, that he wanted a new contract, but it wasn't totally made clear exactly what that new contract would look like, if the New York Jets would get it done, if Hassan Reddick wanted it desperately where he would hold out to get it, or if Reddick would play out this year with the Jets would let him play out, not extend him, or not, readjust his contract. And then at the end of the year, readdress it depending on how this season goes. And then whatever the future holds then for Hassan Reddick and the New York Jets, that would be decided in 2025. But it seems like Reddick wants this a lot sooner than maybe some expect. Now, you can understand where Hassan Reddick is coming from. This is a guy that's in the final year of a 3-year, $45 million contract. He's making a non-guaranteed $14.5 million this season. And that right there is where he wants a new deal. None of the money, making no guaranteed. Non-guaranteed $14.5 million. There is not any guaranteed money in his contract this season, which means if he would to go down at any point during camp, any point during the season, that's all non-guaranteed money. And that's a very risky game that you are playing as an NFL player, not having guaranteed money. So I can understand why Hassan Reddick was not at OTAs, but I also want to make it clear. We're talking about OTAs that he was not at. There was many clips that have surfaced on Twitter over the last couple of weeks of Reddick doing stuff on his own. I'm not concerned about this. I don't think you're got to be really concerned about the Reddick situation until training camp. If he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp, okay, maybe you're a little concerned. Maybe you start to get a little concerned. But let's be real here, guys. Jets fans who are panicking, Jets fans who are starting to get nervous, the New York Jets are going to get this done. Joe Douglas is going to figure it out. The New York Jets did not trade for Hassan Reddick. No, not knowing that he might want a new contract. They obviously knew that he would want a new contract. They obviously understand that they're going to need to readjust it. They're going to get something done. It's going to happen. The New York Jets were not going to trade for Hassan Reddick, and now this contract situation comes by much of a surprise. They've known this for a while now. They're not going to let Hassan Reddick sit out and not play and not show up to camp, not be a factor on this team. That's not going to happen. They wouldn't have traded for him if they knew that they couldn't readjust his contract or if they felt that there was any way they couldn't agree. They're going to agree on something. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. So just to start there, I would not panic. Now, what the deal looks like, that'll be interesting. If they extend him, if they kind of readjust it to put more guaranteed money in, whatever the two sides can come into an agreement on. But this, of course, is something that, Jets fans have known for a while. Really, the minute he got traded, you wondered what his contract would look like with the Jets if they would give him a new contract. And if they do, what that contract would look like. Reddick mentioned it on his opening introductory press conference that he had after he got traded by the Jets. He basically said, he would like a new deal, but that's not up to him. It's between his agent. It's between the Jets. So obviously that's getting cleared out there. But, mandatory minicamp coming up this week. If Reddick shows up, which Saleh says he expects him to do, then I think there is definitely no panic. If he doesn't show up, maybe get a little nervous. But come on now. The Jets realize this situation and they're in. Hassan Reddick is a massive piece for this team. They're going to get something done sooner rather than, whether it's sooner or later, whether it's in June, whether it's July, whenever it is, something's going to get done. I would not panic. I would not be worried about the Hassan Reddick situation. It makes too much sense it just makes no sense for the Jets to just completely avoid this and have a contract issue loom with this guy over the summer. It just makes no sense for that to happen with the way they dealt. Like they gave up a younger, they let Bryce Huff walk, a younger piece, to bring in Hassan Reddick, who fits their win now window. They're not all of us going to say, oh, no, we're not giving you a new contract. Like, come on now. So again, we know what Reddick brings to the table. 50.5 sacks over the last 4 seasons. Most sacks in the NFL the last 4 seasons. Well, TJ Watt leads with 62. Myles Garrett is 58. Trey Hendrickson has 53. And Hassan Reddick has 50.5. So those 50.5 sacks over the last 4 years, dating back to 2020, that's 4th most in the NFL with some of the league's best pass rushers in Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, who both were obviously the finalists for NFL Defensive Player of the year last season. He's also only missed one game in his career, which is huge. A guy that's durable and stays on the field and stays healthy and makes a huge, huge impact. So that's the Hassan Reddick stuff. I would not worry. Something's going to get done. Hopefully he's out there at mandatory minicamp. I think that would be good, and I expect him to be. But it's not time to panic on Hassan Reddick. This will get worked out. Moving on now to some things that Aaron Rodgers talked about this week with in regards to the New York Jets 2022 draft class. It's really crazy to think that we're already sitting here in 2020, getting ready for the 2024 NFL season. And it's crazy how fast, how kind of time has just flown by with the Jets 2022 draft class. You know, we all keep talking about the 2022 draft class, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, all of these guys. We keep talking about them. And it's crazy to think that they're already all entering year 3. And very soon here, they're going to be looking for new contracts. They're going to be they're going to start to negotiate. Deals are going to start to have to get done. Most likely they will begin after this season, where Sauce will look for an extension. Garrett Wilson probably will. We'll see what they do with the rest of them. Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall, of course. Running back, of course, a very interesting position nowadays when it comes to the contract. That's more stuff you focus on in the offseason in the future. But you feel like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner will get the big bucks at some point, probably next offseason, especially Sauce. They will probably make Sauce the highest paid corner in the NFL come the 2025 next offseason. But, you know, it's crazy to think like the 2020 draft class, they're not really young anymore. You know, they're all entering year 3. Sure, they're still young in terms of NFL years, but when it comes to this team, they're entering year 3. They're going to be looking at a contract now. It's time to, as Rich Cimini, who put it in his weekly article, stated, you know, as Bill Parcells used to say, it's time to ditch the Huggies, I think is how he pronounced it, which is true. You know, it's time to kind of put the big boy pants on. Year 3, you're starting to get into that phase of your career where you're looking at a contract extension. You're starting to become a veteran. You're starting to become a guy that players look up to. And that's something that Rodgers says. He wants to see them take a big leadership role. He said, quote, "Now the fun thing for these guys is they're not the young guys. They're the guys who are grown up. So now it's time to be a leader." You know, and he kind of talked about too how it's a core 4 in a way. And the Jets, you think about it, really do have a version of a core 4. And there hasn't been it's been a very long time, potentially the first time ever, that the New York Jets legitimately have a core like this, where they have 4 legitimate stars, especially 4 of them where it's split. 2 great players on defense, 2 great players on offense, and Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, and defensively, Jermaine Johnson, rather, and Sauce Gardner. But now it's time for that 2022 draft class to take a leap, take another step, become leaders, and it's time to win. Because we talk about core 4, well, you go to the Bronx and Yankee Stadium, you add the core 4 there, their version of the core 4, which is, of course, one of the best groups of players in sports history, with Posada, Pettit, Mo, and Jeter, who, of course, were a part of those Yankee 90s dynasties. Now it's time for this core 4 of the New York Jets to not only become leaders, get their contracts, but it's also time now for them to win. Because you want to be considered a core 4, you want to be considered an elite group of players, well, now you got to go out there and win. And they will be a big reason for that this season. So it really is crazy about now, like just how time has flown, that we've already seen 2 seasons of these guys. Now they're entering year 3, taking on bigger roles. You'll be in your off season in 2025, entering year 4. You're looking for a contract. And that's too why you circle back to the time for the New York Jets to win is now. You have to win when these guys are still on their rookie deals. It's really tough to win in the NFL when you have a ton of guys on all these huge contracts and all these guys looking at big deals. It's tough to win. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they're kind of going through it right now. with T. Higgins. Like they had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase Super Bowl 2 years ago. That's the time to win it with those guys. Now, of course, Chase wants money. Burrow got his money. T. Higgins wants his money. He can't get it. You can't give it out to everybody. The Chiefs are kind of like that as well, although they've done just fine without Tyreek Hill. But even Tyreek Hill, they obviously moved on because you couldn't handle all of them. You couldn't take all of them. Couldn't take all the massive contracts. So now the time's to win. That's why it makes another year this year like this so huge. Because next year, well, you're going to have to give Sauce a major deal. You're probably going to have to give Garrett Wilson a big contract. There's going to be less money than to go around to the rest of the roster. So the time's now for this core, for this group, and for this team. All righty. Now on to some other contract decisions. So as we talked about, Sauce is eligible for a new deal next offseason. As of now, there's an interesting contract kind of situation going on with the New York Jets when it comes to the rest of the cornerback room, and that is DJ Reed and Michael Carter. So MC2 and DJ Reed will both be up after this year. Of course, Michael Carter, one of the, better players that Douglas has found in terms of legitimate diamond in the rough. Michael Carter, the second, was a 5th-round pick out of Duke, 154th overall, not expected to do a whole lot, has come in and turned into one of the best nickelbacks in the NFL. And he'll now be looking for a contract. Now, Michael Carter, the second, similar to Sauce. Sauce will probably look to become the highest paid corner in football. He will probably pass that to be number one, or probably pass the threshold to become number one. Jair Alexander currently holds the number one contract in football for a corner. Sauce will top that. Now, the highest paid nickel in the NFL belongs in a division. That's Teron Johnson of the Buffalo Bills, who signed a 3-year, $33 million contract extension this offseason. So we'll see what Michael Carter wants, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets handle the Michael Carter situation. Is this a deal that gets done this summer where they're proactive with it, get the deal done rather than him play out this year, let him hit the open market, potentially boost his value, and then have to pay more for him next offseason on top of having to pay Sauce and others? I think the smart thing to do with the Jets is you get the deal done this offseason, and Michael Carter II's willing to get it done now, get it out of the way, so then you can focus on other guys next offseason. Because DJ Reed is also a part of this. Somebody that'll be looking for a new deal. Now, he's not going to get a new deal this offseason, but he'll become a free agent after this year. I think you might have to let up one of those guys. I don't think you'll be able to keep all of them, but you cross that bridge when you get there. Michael Carter's really the interesting one. I think he'll get money near the top when it comes to nickel slot corners in football. I mean, this is a guy that statistically is one of the best, arguably the best, if not the best. I mean, there's many numbers you'll look at and you watch him play. He statistically is the best slot cornerback in football. So you give him the money. And I would ideally like to see the New York Jets be proactive with it, where you get the deal done rather than him play it out and then have to pay him more next year, plus having to pay other guys and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. And then, of course, you throw Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall into the mix as well as guys that down the road will be looking at contracts. So a lot of contract stuff that the New York Jets will have to figure out, both this offseason and then, of course, the rest of the way here. And decisions that'll, of course, impact not only this year, but next offseason and years to come. All right. So let's go to OTAs, recap it. Of course, Rodgers was one of the biggest storylines. He looked great. Rodgers looked great at OTAs. The Rodgers to Garrett Wilson connection was excellent. It picked up right where it left off. And I understand it's shorts. I understand it's OTAs. I understand it's May, or it was May, when this all was going down, and early June. It still is early June. I get that. But you could still be excited if you're a Jet fan. We were robbed of Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers last year. We got 4 snaps of it, and we didn't even get one completion. We were robbed of it. We deserve every chance. We earn every chance to be excited about what we've seen in shorts in May, because that's how hungry we are to see a dynamic 1-2 punch at quarterback and wide receiver, something that this organization has been really starving for. And we really haven't seen it since the 2015 Fitzpatrick to Brandon Marshall connection, which is still one of the best passing seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback. It's been a long time since then. We need to see somebody we need to see Rodgers put up a 2015 Fitzpatrick year and even be better than that. It's been we're going on 9 years since that 2015 team. So you're going to see a connection like that, probably even better because Garrett Wilson's just a stud. You saw it so far in OTAs, and this is just who they are. We saw it all last offseason. I think that's what's promising too, is all training camp last year, we saw the connection between Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. It was so strong. And they've picked up right where they left off in OTAs. And that's very promising. Very, very promising. It seems like they've already played an entire season together, the way they looked out there over the last couple weeks. Quick injury update, by the way, with Breece. He's dealing with a lower body injury. Saul mentioned he is fine, though, so nothing to worry about there. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis were very impressive. Braylon Allen seems to be, I don't even know if I want to say running away with the number 2 job or running back 2 spot. I think he's already that. I think that's his position to lose. Bearing something unforeseen during camp, I think Braylon Allen is now your dead set number 2 running back. I don't think that was much of a discussion anyway. When they drafted him, the plan was to have him as your number 2 running back. Obviously, that's ideal for him to be your number 2 running back. And I think his downhill running style, Isaiah Davis's downhill running style, that physicality they bring to the table is huge and something that the New York Jets really look for. Both players are very impressive. And something else you saw a lot out of when it comes to Braylon Allen this OTAs has been his ability out of the backfield. Him and Rodgers, they've been running with the first team. Davis as well has been running with the first team. Those two guys, their ability out of the backfield to catch passes, not only as rushers, but to catch passes from Rodgers and have that connection already is really, really strong, really, really good to see. And it also boosts their grade. Look, if you got a connection with Rodgers, you build good chemistry with Rodgers, you're going to make the team. Look, they were never in danger of not making the team, but you're going to play a role. Look at Xavier Gipson and Jason Brownlee. If you remember last year during OTAs, Rodgers mentioned Gipson and Brownlee as 2 guys he was impressed with. Guess what? Both those undrafted free agents made the team. If you get on Rodgers' good side and you do good things with him, you're going to play a big role in the offense. So Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are very impressive. Those guys are like stock up. In terms of the rest of the running backs, Izzy Abanikanda didn't do a whole lot. From all the beat reporters and Brandon Pockris as well, who was at the season ticket holder events, everybody was mentioning how Izzy Abanikanda wasn't even working with the first or second team. He was so buried, and I understand it's OTAs, they're just rotating, but to not even really see him be a factor is a little weird. And then you add Tariq Cohen on top of that. I talked about this in my last episode, and I'm not saying Izzy's roster spot, I'm not saying he's going to get cut automatically. I'm not saying that. It's not like he's already off the team, but it seems like it's in the direction of he's going to have a really good camp to make this roster. But when they drafted Braylon Allen, it's all right, they need another running back. But then when they drafted Isaiah Davis, it's all right, Izzy's seat's getting hotter. And then they signed Tariq Cohen, it's getting even hotter. Now it's really hot. He's got to step up now. So the running back room continues to kind of file into place, getting interesting. Ruckert and Conklin look good. Ruckert's a guy that I think a lot of Jets fans should be excited about. Just another year. Hopefully he plays a big role, much bigger role than he played last year. And look, you got Rodgers at quarterback. The plays that Ruckert's in, you have all the focuses on Mike Williams, focus on Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley. It should be a big, big season for those 2 guys. Because a lot of people forget with the tight ends. A lot of people forget with Conklin. Conklin was great. Conklin's one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Conklin is a guy that people don't talk about when it comes to the quarterback issues. The same quarterback issues. It's wild to me how some people just forget that tight ends catch passes. Everyone out there is like, oh, yeah, look at Garrett Wilson. He's didn't have a quarterback. And I totally agree. Of course he didn't. And then you hear people with Conklin, he's like, he's all right. He's been good the last 2 years, but it's like, I don't know how much. Like, are you kidding me? Conklin had these same problems, or the same problems he was dealing with that quarterback that every other receiver was. And he was still putting up some of his best seasons of his career. Conklin's going to have a massive, massive year. He had a career year last year in receptions and yards. And yeah, you want to look at the 0 touchdown and say, oh, we didn't get in the end zone. Well, guess what? We had the worst red zone offense. We had a terrible offensive coordinator, and we had a quarterback that wasn't capable of getting the ball to the end zone. How many times did we see? I broke this down in an episode a while back this offseason. How many times last year did we see Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, Zach Wilson? Give myself flashbacks here. How many times did we see him throw it short of the end zone? Pathetic. There was so many times where Conklin had chances, one-on-one, corner of the end zone, get it to your tight end, get it to your big body. They never did that. They never even looked his way. Rodgers will do that this year. Conklin's going to have a massive season. I'm excited for that tight end room. And even the depth as well. Yeboah looked good. Right? He's a name to look out for. And in Zach Kuntz. And if you remember, go back to Hard Knocks, he ran the wrong route and scored a touchdown against Carolina last year. This is a guy that Rodgers likes. Even when Rodgers came back at the end of the season this past year and was running scout team, him and Kuntz supposedly had a pretty good connection. So you feel like 4 deep there at tight end. And then just some things on defense. Quantez Stiggers was very good during OTAs. We'll see what he does in training camp. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Stiggers does in the preseason, how he looks against, other NFL talent, other NFL guys that are fighting for roster spots, especially during joint practices. Because so far, all the boxes Quantez Stiggers so far has checked all of them. So far, he's checked all the boxes, which is really, really positive. Teammates love him. Great around the locker room. Well respected already. Guys are buying him. He's great. So good for him. You hope it continues in mandatory minicamp and, of course, continues throughout the summer. And then two undrafted free agents that I wanted to get into as well. Braden McGregor has looked pretty good. He's been impressive. And then Eric Watts, also another edge rusher, been impressive. And I mentioned Braden McGregor in my undrafted free agent episode that he was a guy that I was looking out for. It was actually a guy that I mocked to the Jets a couple times in the 7th round. Fell out of the draft. Now, of course, with the Jets, had a good mini camp, so he'll look to continue to have a strong couple of months here. I don't know. I don't think he'll make the team. It's tough. That edge and defensive line room is a brutal for a guy that's trying to make the roster because it's so deep, but potentially lands on the practice squad. We'll see. But definitely a name to keep an eye out for. And then safeties as well. The Jets continue to kind of show trust in his safety room. You got Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, Ashton Davis. Throw Zay Oliver in there. Davis, Clark, Adams, all kind of fighting for those 2 starting spots. I think Chuck Clark's probably your strong safety. He's looked really, he looked solid. Seems like coaches are, Rob Sala's been impressed with him. Happy for Chuck Clark. And this was a guy that a year ago got injured on the last play of OTAs. Tore his ACL. Done for the year. Stuck around, rehabbed. Now he's back. Now he's getting a potential starting job. And a lot of people forget Chuck Clark's a Swiss Army knife. And people will talk about Chuck Clark coming off an injury. Everyone's like, oh, injury concerns. Chuck Clark, historically, does not have injury concerns. This was a guy that actually had an Iron Man streak going with consecutive snaps played, and he comes to the Jets and tears the ACL. Of course, it's like same old Jets. That always happens to us. But the safety room as well doesn't seem like Justin Simmons, doesn't seem like a Quandre Diggs or somebody like that's likely. They like this room. They've never sold very high on it. It's not a weakness. No, it's not necessarily a huge strength. But when you have the corners that you have, and Tony Adams played his best football last year of his career, Ashton Davis played the best football of his career, Chuck Clark's a veteran, you have a nice mix there. Not saying it's going to be great, but it's solid. It gets the job done. Chuck Clark's an upgrade over Jordan Whitehead. Tony Adams, Ashton Davis, they're upgrades. We had to watch LaMarcus Joyner 2 years ago, people. It could be a lot worse. So that'll do it. Those are mainly my main OTA takeaways. Once again, 15% off. Code BUBS off any purchase at Hygge House. You want to look like Aaron Rodgers? You want to rock what Aaron Rodgers is rocking when it comes to the hat, as you could see there, or in this picture as well? You want to wear the hats that QB1's wearing? Head on over to Huga House, link in the description below. Click on that link, whether you want to buy a shirt, you want to buy a hat, whatever you want to buy, use code BUBS for 15% off and get yourself some Huga House apparel and get yourself the same swag that QB1's rocking and Aaron Rodgers. Appreciate all the support. We'll have 3 days straight of content during mandatory minicamp as things continue to ramp up here, and a lot more content the rest of this month. So stay tuned. As always, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening on all the different podcast platforms. And as always, thank you for watching here on YouTube. Till next time, JETS, 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 Jets.